Hi everyone, my name is Zaina, and in this video I want to share with you a few tips of studying Chinese which I believe will save you months, if not years, once you implement them. Without further ado, let me start with the first tip. So, listen, tip number 1. Do not study how to write. I know it sounds counterintuitive. Writing is an important part of a language learning process, right? For example, when we were at school, we would study French or Spanish or any other Latin language. A teacher would explain something and we would take notes of those, grammar rules or whatever. And the thing is, we know how to write Latin characters, and alphabetic languages are very easy to take notes of. But Chinese is not alphabetic, and there are thousands of characters, and do you really have to learn them? Even like 1,000 characters, imagine 1,000 characters, remembering every stroke of those 1,000 characters. Just imagine this. Why? Why? Literally, why? Nobody, no Chinese person in 2023 has to write a letter to communicate with another person. What do? They use pinyin. They simply use pinyin to type, to send a message. We live in 2023, we don't have to write characters. And you know what? Chinese characters were so difficult that the government simplified it and made it simplified Chinese. But it's still difficult to teach more than 1 billion people to write, and many people forget. Just ask Chinese people to write a letter. They already forgot how to do that. Just think about it. And 90% of people start with writing, start with, learning how to write those characters. You don't have to do this. Don't waste your time. I look at people who are at universities. They all obliged to learn how to write. And the thing that happens to them is that they literally spend years of only studying Chinese. And remember, those people don't work. Those people only study Chinese. And after a year of studying just the language, they're still at like pre-intermediate level. They're still beginners even after learning, because most of the time they just waste it. I have experience of taking courses at university. At that time, I was already an upper intermediate student, and I completely didn't know how to write, and I still don't know how to write characters. A Chinese teacher would tell me,
"Oh, go home and study how to write."
Because everybody else in the class kinda knew how to write, more or less. Because why? They all were Korean, and one student from Hong Kong, and me.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
At that time, I studied Chinese for 1.5 years. I told him, if I start studying how to write characters, I will spend the whole year just doing that, just writing all those 3,000 characters every day, and I will still not be able to write perfectly. Do I have 1 year to waste of my life? Of course no, because anyway, my inability to write is not a problem for me to communicate. And so now let's smoothly go into tip number 2, which is concerning our reading skills. You have to be able to recognize characters, because just imagine you come to China, yes, you go to a restaurant. On the menu, there are no pictures, there are just letters, characters, which you don't understand. What are you gonna do? Probably translate through Google Translate or something. But no, certainly you have to learn how to read characters. And how do you do this? It's very easy. You should start with Chineasy. Chineasy is an app, but actually it's also a book which you can use to start to read characters, to recognize characters. They go, I think, through 500 most used characters, and they explain it in a very interactive form. I highly recommend you to check it out and to start your Chinese journey with. If you are at levels HSK 1, HSK 2, or HSK 3, free. Just go to the App Store and download Chineasy app or Google. There is also a Chineasy book. Also, secondly, what you should do is to find a person who you can talk to using Chinese. Go download WeChat, because all Chinese people use WeChat to communicate, but you can still use some other apps to speak to Chinese people. For example, I found HelloTalk to practice your Chinese typing, not writing. And through typing day by day, and you will get a hand of how characters look like. I think when I just started, I certainly had some people I could talk to in Chinese from China, and I would talk to them almost like every day, even like simply how are you, and so on and so forth. And I believe like through simple conversations, I also learned so much for the characters. And some people would even say, when I'm messaging, I message like a Chinese person. Well, no wonder, I type a lot in Chinese, so yeah. Another source where you can find the pen pals or language buddy would be Tinder, or a Chinese version of Tinder, which is called Tantan. Yeah, you can use those websites. Just set a clear intention. I am here just to study Chinese, and also be clear with your language partners that you're here to study Chinese. Only speak Chinese with me, don't speak any other language, blah, blah, blah. But of course, the best tip for you would be just hiring a Chinese teacher and typing, sending messages with, and also voice messages with Chinese teacher. I highly recommend. But overall, whoever your language partner is, typing has many advantages, many benefits. Number one, you practice recognizing characters. Number two, you communicate with a Chinese person, and via communication, you see whether you are able to communicate your thought in Chinese. Number three, of course, you learn how to use pinyin. So these three benefits through typing. So type as much as you can. But with typing, especially if you don't have a Chinese teacher and you use only like simple vocabulary and you're already tired of this, so I recommend you to download another app which is called duchinese. Duchinese is not only for beginner students and pre-intermediate students, it's for all levels. I myself right now also use it. Duchinese is a perfect reading source for Chinese learners, because not only it has the reading text, but it also has listening attached to this, and you can control the listening speed. You can make it slower or you can make it faster, up to you. And number three, it also has pinyin. And now we smoothly go into tip number three, because now we're going to talk about the tones, and duchinese also can be helpful with the tones because it displays pinyin and pinyin displays the tones. A mistake I made in my language learning process, I didn't pay attention to the tones enough, and this is why at this moment I even have to relearn some things I have already learned. For example, let's imagine, I don't know, there is a word, I know the characters, I know how to read it, I know how to type it, but I don't know the tones. And for example, I say matong instead of matong. For Chinese person, these are completely two different words. So basically, if you don't know the tones, that is equivalent to you don't know the word. So when you're studying a word, you should be able to recognize it, and you should be able to pronounce it with the correct tones. You always have to remember tones. And I will shoot a separate video on this topic because I have to show you the instruction on how I personally do this, because the way I study vocabulary also came to me from studying English, and you can learn tons of words a day and you can do it very, very efficiently, but that would take a long time, and hopefully I have the patience and your support to shoot another video for this one. Actually, how to pronounce the tones should be from the beginning. Okay, don't postpone this. Learn it right away. When I just started my journey, I actually came to China for a visit. And before coming to China, I learned just, like a few phrases like ni hao, simple things like how much is this? Oh, is it a tomato? Is it potato? Something like this. And I thought I was pronouncing it so clearly, but nobody could understand me. Although I was reading like 100 times, I would pronounce just one word, but nobody could understand me. And it was so frustrating that when I came back to my home country, I immediately started with the Chinese course on pronunciation, and I probably spent maybe like a month focusing on pronunciation because I just knew how important that was. But still, sometime later, I just ignored it again because I believed I was so perfect, yes, and I just ignored it. And now basically the same vocabulary, I have to kind of relearn it, yes, with the pinyin. And I ask my teacher every time, to always correct my tone so that, I speak very, very, very clearly. And I hope that you just don't make the same mistake as I did. Learn the pinyin, learn the pronunciation from day zero of your language learning process. So let me now quickly summarize the 3 tips I just gave you, which will save you months in your language learning process. Number 1, do not learn how to write characters. Number 2, learn how to read characters, how to recognize them. And number 3, remember that Chinese is a tonal language and you have to learn the tones from day 1, from day 0, as I mentioned.